Hey there, I'm Andre. Thanks for joining. In today's conversation, I thought about talking to a cloud expert. So I invited Ahmed to tell us a little bit about his experience and a little bit of what he do in the cloud space. Ahmed, can you introduce yourself and tell us about your experience?
Hi Andre, thank you for having me. I am Ahmed. I am a cloud consultant with 15 years of experience. I have recently been awarded the Microsoft MVP award for the category of Azure networking. I have been in the industry for 15 years now. 10 of those was doing network architecture, and in the last 5 years I pivoted to become more of a cloud consultant working on Microsoft Azure cloud and cloud in general. I really love sharing my content. I've got my own YouTube channel, I've got a blog, and I help run the Aotearoa Azure meetup in New Zealand with Muhi and a few of the Microsoft employees, and we run that once in a month. It's all about the community sharing knowledge back to people, and also it's about meeting people, networking, and learning more about people experiences.
Yeah, and that's where I met you. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, exactly. That's where I met you. You came to one of our meetup and introduced a beautiful topic about cybersecurity in general. So yeah,
that's right.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. Thanks for coming along. I understand you have some news to share about Azure Well Architected Framework, which is something that I always hear and talk to customers about when designing cloud infrastructure. So what can you share to us?
Yeah, so the Microsoft Well Architected Framework has gone through a refresh of content. I prepared a couple of slides just to take you through what the refresh is all about and how the content has been restructured. And I'll also take you after that through the documentation of the Microsoft documentation for the Well Architected Framework, just to show you the structure and how any professional or person working on Microsoft Cloud could actually benefit from that. So I'll share my screen in a second. Yeah. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about what is the Azure Well Architected Framework. So the Well Architected Framework is a set of guidelines, best practices, and recommendation for how to run your Microsoft workloads on Azure, and it focuses on 5 pillars. It focuses on cost optimization, operational excellence, performance efficiency, and of course reliability and security. So the idea is that for a well-architected framework, and how do you think of it compared to the other famous framework, which is the Cloud Adoption Framework, the well-architected framework is about existing solution on Microsoft Azure. So like you saying that you've got workloads, applications, and an environment that is currently running in Microsoft Azure, and then you need to run it to best practices. That's what happens with, for example, a lot of our clients come to us and a lot of people say, like, I've got my own environment already built in on Azure. How do I make sure it is actually built to Microsoft standard, to the best practices, and I'm getting the best value out of my investment in Azure? This is where the Well Architected Framework comes in. So the Well Architected Framework, again, it's all about the existing workloads. For the Cloud Adoption Framework, it's much more broader than the Well Architected Framework. Cloud adoption is about the entire life cycle of your cloud journey. So for example, it takes you through all the way from planning your migration to the cloud, or like planning your workloads in the cloud, all the way through to innovation. So like takes you from planning, budgeting, management, governance, your company strategy, all those goes into the Cloud Adoption Framework. Not as much for the Well Architected Framework. Well Architected Framework is focused completely on making sure that the environment that you build on Azure is set to the best practices and following best practices for that Microsoft recommends people to follow. And in November last year, in Microsoft Ignite, there was a very big refresh for the Well Architected Framework. The content of the Well Architected Framework has been refreshed, restructured, refocused. A lot of the details are now much more design oriented, as opposed to before the refresh. A lot of the content was about not a lot of the some of the content actually was about implementation details. So you would be looking for like how to build your environment in a secure or reliable manner, but also there would be interweave details about how to specifically implement the technology.
Mm-hmm.
The new well-architected framework has actually offloaded this to more into the specific documentation where it's actually talking about technology. So, for example, as we'll see, if you see a well-architected framework about Azure Virtual Networking or like about firewall or a Kubernetes service, it talks about how to design an environment using this technology, not as much about how to actually implement that or how to specifically configure and build those environment. So that's one of the biggest refresh to the almost like a thematic change to the well-architected framework. And then the other one is that it's actually now more developer-centric. So whenever it makes sense, the focus is now more on the application that runs on top of the infrastructure, not as much as the infrastructure itself. So it is now much more developer-friendly and much more developer-focused. And the other big change, which I really like, is that now all the pillars of the well-architected framework, the security, the reliability, the cost, performance, and operational excellence, has now have a unified structure, which is something that I really like, as we'll see in a second on Microsoft documentation, is that each pillar now contains design principles, design review checklist, recommendation guidelines, trade-offs, and then cloud design patterns. So just to talk a little bit about what those mean, is that design principle is that how would you actually design your workload? It is changing, again, like we talked, changing from a implementation focus into a design focus. So this is where you'll find like how do you design your environment. This is focused here in the design principles. Design review checklist, it's all about going through a checklist of saying like you need to design or you need to plan your IP addresses, or like you need to design to use DDoS or Microsoft Azure DDoS, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
The recommendation guides is that when it says that you need to design your environment in a specific way, it actually gives you a link to the recommendation guide. This is how to implement what the design review is actually telling you to do. So when it says you need to design your your environment in a simple and as simple as possible, it takes you to a recommendation guide where it says, okay, this is what you need to do to actually implement that design checklist. This is what needs to take place here.
So this is where the previous implementation mindset has gone to, kinda, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So as you can see now, it is much more focused and easy to actually navigate. So before, the well-architected framework contains every single good idea, best practice, which was okay, but now, I think actually that's one of my complaints, and one of the complaints that I heard is that people find it really difficult to navigate and understand what do I need to do to actually build my infrastructure in a best practice, or what is deemed to be a well-architected environment. So it's now taking you, first of all, to explain the design principle, then takes you through a checklist of saying like, this is what you need to do. When it recommends that you need to do this or that, it actually turns into change notation and say like, oh, this is how to implement it. And one thing that I really love, which is the new section of trade-off. This is one thing that not a lot of people realize, is that all those 5 pillars, you can't achieve all of them with 100%
completion.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is that, there is this saying like, let's say, fast, cheap, and I think reliable, fast, cheap, and reliable. You could only get 2 of them. So if you build it in fast and cheap, it's not going to be reliable, it's not going to be right. If you build it if you build it fast and reliable, it's not going to be cheap. Cheap and reliable is not going to be fast. So those kind of trade-offs happen. So when you say, like, for example, I want to implement my design in a cost-effective way, and also thinking about security, this is where it becomes a trade-off. So with security, you need to add more logs. But if you add more logs or more option to log events in your environment, they actually end up costing you more. So this is where the mentality of an architect comes in. This is where the business strategy, business content, business goals, comes in and say, like, okay, which is your immediate, like, short term is to save some cost because your environment is crawling, it's a lot of cost to the organization. You need to focus on cost, and then not so much, of course, security is really important, but not really deep dive into security. Once you're in a good place, that's when you pivot and come back and say, okay, I need to, like, close all the gaps and make sure my environment is completely secure, even if that cost actually end up being increasing. So that's actually a really important. I really love this addition, that trade-off in each pillar. It says, how does this pillar compare, or like what are the trade-off between the other pillars? And again, I'll show you that in the documentation. And then finally, cloud design patterns. This is very beautiful because it's all about, like, the knowledge and experience of every client of Microsoft, every partner, Microsoft as a company when building environment. This, instead of having to reinvent the wheel, it turned into almost like reusable solutions. So an example that comes to my mind is the publisher subscriber model, like the PubSub model. So if you want to build your environment in a decoupled way, where, like, if one of your services actually fails, it's not going to take the whole system down. That's why you build it in a decoupled way, and to achieve that, you build it in a publisher subscriber model, where, like, a service would be publishing events, other services will be listening to those events, and in the middle you have broker. Yes, exactly. In the middle you have a broker. Thank you. And it would be sending messages to those to the subscriber. If the publisher failed, it's not going to take the subscriber down. And if the broker fails, you'll have, like, a redundancy and build another broker connected to it. So on and so forth. So these are like reusable solution. You could just look at it and say, okay, this is good. I want to build my application built using this pattern, and just figure out what services in Microsoft Azure could actually help you to build it this way. Awesome. And then the final thing to talk about here is just like almost like key takeaway. Well Architected Framework has been changed to be design-oriented, developer-focused, highlighting trade-off, unifying the structure, and also aligned with each pillar a specific design pattern that could help service that pillar.
Hey, hopefully found the video useful. If you are keen to hear more and find out more about these sort of solutions and topics, please make sure you like and subscribe. Cheers.